What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Zekko football channel. Aston Villa are a very dangerous side to play against. They've scored 23 goals this season out of only 9 games. In fact, they are the second highest top scorers and have more goals scored than Arsenal, Manchester City and Tottenham. They have just recently beaten West Ham by 4 goals to 1, so I thought this would be a perfect example to try and explain what makes them so darn dangerous. If you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications. It really does help me out. But without further ado, let's talk Aston Villa. As I said, Aston Villa have beaten West Ham by 4 goals to 1, and in the end, the game wasn't really too close. West Ham ended up getting a deflection, but Aston Villa's goals were pretty special. Douglas Luiz obviously getting a shot from outside of the box. He then scored that penalty, and Ollie Watkins, with a fantastic left-footed finish, made sure that Aston Villa took away all 3 points. But it wasn't until the very end of the match that we saw Leon Bailey really hit one home. But what did they do so well? Well, let's have a look at the average positions, because what was really interesting to me is, although Aston Villa started out in a 4-4-2, you can see that here, Zaniolo out on this left-hand side, John McGinn out on this right-hand side, the narrowness with the way that they played was something that was quite stark to me. As you can see, the average positions of McGinn and Zaniolo come into midfield, and this is something that has been shown in an Aston Villa side for quite some time now. Unai Emery likes his narrow midfield. He likes being able to get 2 attackers up front, and it's using this kind of formation and this kind of tactic that allows them to progress the ball that little bit better. Let me explain. Okay, so here we have the Aston Villa side. We've got them in their 4-4-2 formation, but what became really apparent is that Zaniolo and McGinn did not stay in wide areas all too much. They actually ended up coming central, creating a far more narrow formation, but it's still allowing for the 2 fullbacks to really push forwards. And what this did is it created a box in midfield. This allowed for Aston Villa to have a lot more possession and control of the ball. Watkins and Diaby were creating the verticality in this Aston Villa side by making runs into the channels, before then coming back in towards the box to allow for Lukadin and Matty Cash to really create the overloads and create the width. The width was provided by the fullbacks once Aston Villa had control of the ball and were further up the pitch. The box in midfield is something that I think a lot of teams covet now, and Aston Villa created it by bringing in the 2 wide players. This allows them to have a little bit more domination in the middle of the park, while still enabling themselves to have 2 main strikers up front. As I said, the width provided by the fullbacks, one goes forward, one stays back, and vice versa. It enables them to have a bit of balance in the side, while at the same time making sure that their 2 forwards can occupy the 2 opposition centre-backs. A very, very dangerous combination indeed. And then we talk about the individuals in the Aston Villa side. Ollie Watkins is in the form of his life right now. 5 goals and 5 assists in only 9 games. Just extremely pivotal to the way this Aston Villa side go forwards, and his link up with Moussa Diaby in the new role that Unai Emery has given him is just, he's taking it to a whole new level. Remember that I mentioned about the runs and the verticality that they created through their runs into the channels, and this not only helps Aston Villa get up the pitch, but it also makes sure that they can have enough space for each other. They're almost creating the space for one another to really operate in, and Ollie Watkins is a very fast player, and so is Moussa Diaby, which means that the transition through these 2 is just so dangerous. They pinned themselves onto the likes of Kurt Zouma and Aged, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then we move back into the team a little bit more. We've spoken on Zaniolo and we've spoken on McGinn, but Douglas Luiz and Kamara are the real bedrock for the way this side go forwards. Not only can they rotate the ball round, but they also have a very good eye for a pass on them. Douglas Luiz is starting to get some goals. I believe he scored in his last 6 home matches. Now, when you've got goals from midfield and as well you've got passes in your side, you're only going to go from strength to strength. There are goal threats all throughout this Aston Villa side. And then we talk about the width. Sometimes you can see the narrowness of play being something of a hindrance, but what you need, in what Unai Emery has actually figured out, is the width that comes from the fullbacks. It's really old school, and I mean a good 10 years ago, bringing width from fullbacks, making sure that you have overlapping runs, but the width is really created from the fullbacks, which allows so many players to play in the midfield. They flood the midfield areas, but also make sure that their fullbacks win their 1v1 duels, and that's where I want to go to next. We have a look at the player statistics. Aston Villa were all over West Ham United. Jarrod Bowen is the only player that's anywhere near these top stats. 2 goals, 3 tackles, just fantastic from Douglas Luiz. He won 3 out of his 6 duels. 3 out of his 6 ground duels were won. He's just been everywhere. And the same can be said for a number of other players. But Kamara getting 3 tackles. Matty Cash getting 5 tackles. Konsa getting 1 tackle. Aston Villa actually had 18 tackles this game to, I believe, West Ham's 5. Now, that kind of a mismatch just means that Aston Villa gained the momentum and gained the ball so much more frequently, which allows them to then progress themselves forward and really impose themselves on this Newcastle, on this West Ham United side. And then when we have a look at the statistics just generally, yes, it may seem like West Ham had a more equal share of possession, a more equal share of the ball and the same amount of shots, but Aston Villa were far more clinical. 1.94 XG to 1.16, but Aston Villa actually scored 4 goals from that, and West Ham only scored 1. It's just something that Unai Emery has really put into this side. Aston Villa even missed 1 big chance. It's this kind of play that has started to propel them forwards and higher up the table to the point where they are only 2 points off the top. Yes, they might be in 5th, but they are only 2 points off Manchester City. Tottenham are yet to play at the minute, so that could change, but it's just a testament to the way that Unai Emery has got this side playing. They look so very dangerous. As I said, there are goals everywhere in this side. Douglas Luiz, Ollie Watkins, Moussa Diaby, and then you look at the bench. Let's just take a look at the bench, because Leon Bailey got on the score sheet. Yuri Tielemans is still on the bench, and they've still got people to come back in. But you look at the quality in the squad. Diego Carlos can't get a game. Clement Longley can't get a game. You've got the likes of Dendoncker, and you've still got players injured. Buendia is out injured. Tyrone Mings is out injured. Jacob Ramsey is out injured. So many different avenues to be able to attack, and it just means that this Aston Villa side are so very, very dangerous. And to wrap up, let's have a look at some in-match moments. This is just before the first Aston Villa goal. As you can see, Zaniolo is out here on the left-hand side with the ball. Ollie Watkins is making a move into the centre of the pitch after being out wide, like I mentioned previously. What's going to happen is Zaniolo is going to drive towards the byline and then lay off a pass into the path of Ollie Watkins, who picks up a good pocket of space in the box. He's going to be closed down very quickly by 2 West Ham players, but he has the calmness and the coolness of head to be able to understand that he's not going to be able to get a shot off, and instead he tries to lay it off for Douglas Luiz, who is currently running onto the ball. This allows Douglas Luiz to get a shot off from the edge of the box, and it rifles in towards Areola. He has too much power on it, and that means that Aston Villa get their first goal. But let's take it back and have a look at a different angle. Look at how many Aston Villa players are currently entering or around the box. That's a good 4 players, but then Douglas Luiz is also going to drive on towards the ball. And remember what I said about the fullbacks earlier on. Matty Cash is currently in the box, but where is Luca Digne? He's not too far away, but at the same time, he's just a little bit further back, making sure that there is an asymmetrical nature to the way that Aston Villa go forwards, but also keeping that defensive structure along with Douglas Luiz, along with Boubacar Kamara and the 2 centre-backs. So they're not fully committing, but they're also getting enough people into the box to make sure that they have enough danger. That's 4 players in during the box, and then they get a couple more in and around the area before the goal happens. Let's move on to a different moment. Now, remember what I said about the likes of Ollie Watkins and Moussa Diaby being extremely good on the transition. John McGinn currently has the ball here, and the score for this is currently at 2-1. But McGinn sees that Ollie Watkins and Moussa Diaby are currently on their bikes, and that is exactly what happens. Because of the fact that they have 2 strikers available, they can pin themselves onto the 2 West Ham defenders, and it means that more often than not, especially in this game, they had a 2v2 scenario, and it just meant that the overloads were so dangerous for Aston Villa against West Ham. They were destined to get a goal in this way. Ollie Watkins ends up taking it by himself and rifling it into the top corner. It was just fantastic play, but it's really been enabled by the fact that Aston Villa have 2 strikers going forwards. Let's have a look at one final instance, one final moment, and this is later on in the game. This is Leon Bailey's goal. Yuri Tielemans plays a ball through the lines, and this is what I'm talking about with the calibre of players that Aston Villa have in their squad to be able to come off the bench. Tielemans to Bailey, 2 players who were previously on the bench. Bailey drops a shoulder, makes sure he's able to get a yard for himself, and then rifles it into the net. Aston Villa have an abundance of attacking talent. They have one of the most informed strikers in the Premier League to date, and they have a manager who is allowing them to express themselves in a different but more direct and free-flowing manner. Make no mistake about it, Aston Villa are a dangerous, dangerous proposition, and they have enough firepower to even maybe contest those top 4 places. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on Aston Villa and how well you think they are going to do this season. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learnt something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care.